Welcome to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. Here's your host, Steve Teixeira.
Thanks, Andy. This is Steve Teixeira. Welcome to another 17 Strong podcast. I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Holly.
Hi.
And we also have a special guest with us today.
Yay.
Would you like to introduce her?
Sure. No, why don't you? You're much better at that.
Okay, well, thank you. We have a fiery redhead.
Woo.
Nurse from UCLA, one of Ryan's favorite nurses. He loved them all, but Meredith Howland had a very special relationship with Ryan. So welcome,
Yes.
Meredith.
I am so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, a little bit about myself. Okay. Well, my name is Meredith.
Keep it clean, Meredith.
I'm going to keep it clean just for you. So as Steve said, I've been a nurse for 10 and a half years. I started my career at UCLA and have been there throughout. I came into nursing knowing that I wanted to be a pediatric oncology nurse and was absolutely devastated when they told me that I had to wait a year to start my training. It was like my nightmare. But I eventually got to where I wanted to be, and I love it. I've been just so blessed with my career and all the amazing kids and families that I've gotten to meet. And yeah, I love it.
You know, why pediatrics? It takes a really special person to be an oncology nurse, period, but let alone pediatrics. So why did you choose pediatrics?
I love kids, which is funny because, well, I'll tell you in a minute, but I love kids. And I always knew that I wanted to work with kids. When I was little, I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. And then I was like, I don't want to go to that much school. And so my mom was, she ended up getting her teaching degree while I was still in grade school. And so I watched her and I was like, oh yeah, like that's working with kids. And then I realized I'd be responsible for the future of America, 30 minds, 5 days a week, a little intense. I was like, no, that's not for me. And my mom would tell you that she was actually a little bit concerned about me in my early teen years because I would read these books by an author named Lurleen McDaniel, and they were about teenagers who had illnesses like cancer, like cystic fibrosis, and they're of course little love stories. And I couldn't wait for the next one to come out. My mom was just like, oh my gosh, she's reading about teenagers that die and have diseases. Eventually she's like, now it all makes sense. They just kind of steered in that direction. So, started out wanting to be a doctor, wanting to work with kids, and I ended up being a nurse that works with kids. I love them so much because, well, I first came in wanting to work with like the school age kids, and, I love them too. But over my 10 years, I found that my two favorite age groups are early school age, like 4, 5, 6, because so into like the fantasy and princess and all that fun stuff that you can do with them. And they just keep it real. Like there's no holding back.
That's right.
And there's a lot
no
of innocence there too. Yeah.
So much innocence. And they just tell you straight how it is and what they want to do and what they don't and what they don't like about you and how much they love you.
That comes around later in life too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It certainly does. And the other group that I have found I just love so much are the older teenagers into young adulthood, because it's kind of the same thing. Like they're just real. They keep it real. They're not messing around. They're going to tell you straight up how they feel. And it gives you the opportunity to really develop a relationship with them that you don't get to have with the younger kids, because they understand what's happening to them and they're processing it and they have all these tough questions, and it really gives you the chance to get to know them on a deeper level, which is what I love about my job.
That's awesome.
It takes a special person to do that. And we admire all the nurses and doctors and anybody in healthcare that is, especially those that are working with oncology and cystic fibrosis. I mean, these are all really sick individuals that, as we know, may or may not make it.
Yeah.
And so it takes a very special person to do what you do and your colleagues do. So we thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. So tell me, Meredith, what do you remember about meeting us for the first time? I'm kind of curious about this because I just told her I don't remember meeting her because if you remember in our last podcast, I was all business. I was there. I was walking it out and I really wasn't there to make friends, but I ended up having a few friends. So tell me about our first meeting.
Well, I don't know if I could directly pinpoint the exact time, but I do remember the first time I met Ryan. He was in room 3519. And
right across from the nurse's station.
That's right. And I hadn't really taken care of him for, I want to say, the first couple weeks that he had been there. And all of my colleagues were like, oh my gosh, have you taken care of Ryan yet? And I'm like, no, but I'm hearing good things. And everybody's like, oh, you're going to love him. And I was like, oh man, okay. So I remember meeting him for the first time. And, just like in everyday life, there's just some people you instantly click with, right?
Totally. Yep.
The minute I walked in that room, I was like, oh, we're going to be best friends. I can feel it. I can sense it. And we both, I think I have kind of, a big personality.
Yeah, I would say just a little bit.
I disagree with that.
And Ryan had a larger than life personality, and it was fun. We just like fed off each other, and we got along so well, and it was jokes and laughter and fun. The first time we met, and Steve was very social. Steve was a very social guy when I first met him. Just chatty. We had a good time. And of course, our relationship grew as I continued to take care of Ryan. And I remember meeting Holly, and she wasn't rude. She was polite. She'd say hi.
But she was zoned in.
She was totally zoned in, and I actually have a story about it.
Here we go.
Yeah. So I've been listening to all the podcasts. And so when Holly was talking about how she was zoned in, I was like, oh, it's so true. It's so true. I remember one time Ryan had got chemo and his counts dropped. And when you have AML, you're really already almost like a transplant patient because you're just so much more susceptible to infection. And so his counts had dropped. He got really sick. He was septic. He had to go up to the ICU for a little bit. And he came back down. He was stable, but he was still very sick. And he was actually getting IV Tylenol around the clock at the time. And I remember Maricel, one of my colleagues that I love very much. She was actually his nurse that night, and she and I were standing at the nurse's station talking. And Ryan was still in room 19 at the time, which was across from the nurse's station. And I remember watching Holly walk out, and she walked up to Maricel and just started telling her, has it been 6 hours? I think it's time for his Tylenol. And I just remember trying to interject and talk. She wouldn't even look at me. It was just locked in on Maricel. And I was like, hi, Holly. Nothing. I was getting nothing. It was tunnel vision right at Maricel.
I told you. It was, yeah.
I was like, oh man, she means business. She's locked in here.
Yeah.
She was in mama mode, big time mama mode. So,
I have no excuse. I know that I was exactly like that too. It was very hard for me. I think we talked a little bit about it, and we had done this once before at the Santa Monica hospital, and I was, I got to know all the nurses, and it was, warm and fuzzy, and then I'm like, shoot,
You were dancing in Santa Monica.
I was dancing in Santa Monica. We were in the halls dancing with Santa Monica. And I just felt like there was such a shift, when you're inpatient all the time and you're isolated and it's on a floor where, there's pediatrics everywhere. And it's hard. It's a hard floor to go on in a good day, on a good day. So I was tunnel vision, and let's get this done and over with is what I kept thinking, and then you meet these wonderful people and you're not thinking, oh my gosh, this is what they do. This is their work, where I was like, I hope I never have to do this and I never have to see these people again. And it would be very hard for me to go on that third floor in UCLA or even go into UCLA anymore. But, you guys have a tough job, but I love getting to know a lot of them there. It was neat.
We broke her down eventually.
Yes, they did.
We got in there.
Yes, they did.
We cracked that shell. She came to love us.
I know. That's right. That's right. In the worst situation possible, So, okay. So tell me, there was a situation where you and Ryan were singing together,
Yes.
and I would like to know how that came about, or do you know?
I have like a vague recollection. As Steve will tell you, every time I would come into a room, I have a song to sing. I don't know. I just have a song in my
or
heart.
you were wearing a princess garb,
Absolutely,
something in
a
your
crown,
hair. I mean,
something
it was
sparkly.
always something different. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to keep it fun, keep
That's
it light, right? And I am a princess, so
That's right.
might as well dress like one. So I don't know. Ryan actually, I remember 2 videos that he did. He did the music video, The Take on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And then I remember him also showing me one that he and Nicole did where they did Baby It's Cold Outside,
Yep.
but he sang the girl part and Nicole sang the boy part.
Yes.
And
That was Christmas time in the hospital.
That was
Yeah.
Christmas time. I
Yeah.
was the one that was videoing.
Oh, were you?
You didn't work. It must have been Christmas time, so you were probably out. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember those videos, and I don't know, I may have just started asking Ryan and probably tried to force him to sing with me, and we were trying to decide on a song that we both knew, and Frozen was pretty popular at the time.
It still is.
It still is.
That's right.
Frozen's big and something that Ryan and I could agree upon, and so. Do you want to build a snowman? Kind of became our song.
It
Yeah,
really
it
was.
did.
It really was. Yes.
And that will make an appearance on this podcast.
Oh,
I still
yeah.
have the video. So.
The outtakes were probably my
The
favorite.
outtakes were so good.
They were so good.
They were
Yeah.
so
the
good.
outtakes, it took them several times and they were
Several.
yelling at each other that you're singing my part. Well, you didn't even remember the words. And they were going on and on. And it was
more so his fault than mine. Let's just get that straight. Okay.
okay. That says it all right there. Says it all. That was fun. That was actually one of those fun things that we did in the hospital and kept that it was just so every day was the same. So it was nice to do some fun things like that.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Do you have like a favorite moment?
Do I have a favorite moment? Well, we revisited this recently. Something that kind of happens when you get to know a patient and their family and their friends and their significant others, you kind of become protective. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, could I technically have been Ryan's mom? I don't think so. I don't think I could have technically been his mom. But you kind of take on this mom persona sometimes,
Sure.
especially when their family's not there. And he was in the hospital waiting for his counts to recover. And again,
He was feeling good at this
wa-
point.
He was feeling real good at this point.
Yes.
And he was still in room 19 across from the nurse's station. And I was going to be his nurse that night, and I got report. And typically when we end report, we always say who's at the bedside with them. Mom's at the bedside or brother's at the bedside. And this particular night, I got girlfriends at the bedside. I was like, oh, cool, Nicole's here. Great. And we walk in there, and my face, I just like tensed up. I go, that ain't Nicole. Who's that girl? Who's that girl? So I was trying to hold it together when I was in the room, and I'm just like looking around. I'm looking at Ryan. I was like, ooh, he's going to get it. So I come out of the room, I close the door, and I said to my colleague, that's not his girlfriend. Who is that? And she was like, oh, I thought that was his girlfriend. I was like, oh, man, he's in trouble. So you best believe I was in there patrolling. I'm like, who this girl? I go in there and say, oh, I haven't seen you before. She's like, oh, hi. Her name was Landon.
Yeah.
Sweet girl, super sweet. but I was Team Nicole. So I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Ryan's like looking at me. I'm in and out of the room like more than I need to be because he's doing real well at this point. I might have left the door cracked a couple of times. I'm not playing. My Ryan was not going to be that guy, you know?
So funny.
Not going to be that guy.
Okay, let me explain. That's my favorite story with Meredith as well. And I just rolled when I heard this story because you got to understand that Ryan's in the hospital day in, day out, and he's eye rolling Steve and I, and like I'm feeling good, like go out and do something. So Landon lived in LA area. She went to school there. Yeah. Well, Landon was his tutor in math in high school. And so we kept in contact with her. And when we were in Santa Monica, she did many visits, would, bring him food that he was craving and then at Westwood, it was so nice to be able to call her. And she was, 20 minutes away so that we can just grab a bite to eat, or whatever the situation was. And this was one of those times that we were out and Landon got to, I think they were watching a movie and some movie that they were
sitting on the couch.
They were
sitting on the couch together.
They were sitting on the couch watching a movie. And let me tell you, Meredith was mom checking him the whole time, making sure. And she was truly Team Nicole for sure.
I love you, Nicole.
Yes, it was a big shout out there. So anyway, and we do love Landon, and she was great for us as
Landon,
parents.
you're a sweetheart. No hard feelings.
No hard feelings
at all.
But it was the whole thing that she thought she was walking in to see Nicole because Nicole would be there a lot of the time. So it was such a funny moment, and I think that she would appreciate it now. Yeah, she would so appreciate that, and I know that she felt it too. She's like, I don't know what's wrong with that girl, but she keeps coming in here. But it was for all of it was good. All of it was good. But that was
Ryan just enjoyed having his friends around.
Absolutely.
Really, the boys made treks down there. Landon lived down there, so she'd come by and see him occasionally, and then of course Nicole every other weekend or as much as she could get down there.
Absolutely.
So, and you could interject on this, Meredith, but it's so important to have a support system around you.
100%.
And, it's one thing for the parents to be there, but friends add a whole nother element of a support to these people.
They do. And it always amazes me. I mean, being a teenager, a young adult is hard in general. You're still trying to find yourself, figure yourself out. And then having someone close to you that you love who gets a chronic illness or a disease and tacking that on, that the person like Ryan, you lose your sense of normalcy. And so a lot of times you'll see friends kind of start to drift away a little bit because one, they're still moving with their lives, moving forward, especially at the age Ryan is at. They're all going off to college or getting jobs or, they've got girlfriends now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you see that those relationships kind of slip because there's just nothing that they're able to relate to with each other. But that was so not the case with Ryan. He was so loved and so supported by his friends. They were there for him. And of course, Nicole was there for him. And so that really makes my heart happy when I see that.
You see that for sure. For sure. Now, this might be an interesting question, but I'm curious. What do you think made Ryan different from maybe other patients that you see all the time?
You mean for me?
Yeah, for you personally.
For me. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you didn't love Ryan. He was just infectious. Like I said, from the first time I saw him, it was just like click. Yeah. You just know. And I will tell you that over my 10 years, there have been a handful of people, Ryan included, that have really affected me as a person and, of course, as a nurse. And, the first time you lose a patient, it's obviously devastating. And then you tell yourself, okay, I got to put up these walls. I have to self-protect. And in a sense you do.
Right.
Because there's unfortunately a lot of patients and a lot of families that come through the hospital. So you do well for a little while and then just so happens you meet another one of those patients that you just click with and you're like, ugh, it's going to happen. Like it's done for. They've got me.
Mhm.
And usually it's the first time you meet them, and that's how it was with Ryan. And I loved his attitude and his personality. He was always on. Even when he didn't feel well, he was on.
Yep.
Just such a loving and caring person. Every time I took care of him, he asked me how I was. He would ask me about, what was going on in my life. And I was his nurse, I was his caregiver, but also I was his friend.
Yeah.
And
Right.
just being able to develop that type of a relationship is so special.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, and with that, you can see why Ryan wanted to start 17 Strong,
Absolutely.
because he loved people. That
He
was
did.
his nature. And he felt, just like we've talked so many times, that anybody that goes through this hell needs something to look forward
That's
to.
right. That's right. Now, tell me, Meredith, 17 Strong was already established by the time he was at UCLA. How did you find out about it?
Ryan, I had a discussion about it actually.
Oh, I'd love to hear about
Yeah,
that.
so he was telling me about it. I was lucky. Ryan and I got to have like some good one-on-one conversations. And so I remember I think Steve was probably in the room. But he was telling me about the foundation and where he wanted it to go and what he wanted it to be eventually. And
what was that? Tell me. Did he say, what did he tell you? How did he want it to go? Like
he wanted to be able to send any and every young adult that had been through something similar to what he's been through on a trip because they deserve it.
Absolutely.
He was all about that. Like you guys have said, they need something to look forward to.
Yep.
And to know that that's an opportunity for them. Like, I don't know, it's something to work towards while you're going through it, and just knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And
I think it's pretty cool that he had conversations with you about that.
Yeah.
Because he didn't talk about it to a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
you're
didn't
special.
know that. I didn't know that. Well, I feel
Well,
special.
she wasn't that special. She
Yeah.
didn't have a duck call.
She didn't have a duck
Well,
call, but
listen,
he didn't bring those
He
to.
didn't bring those.
He
Don't make me
didn't.
feel bad about myself.
I know, right? He didn't bring those there. And you know what? It
That was a
probably
Santa
would have been.
Monica thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have got in trouble at UCLA.
I think he would have. He would have been in trouble, big like he wasn't already. But I do remember one thing that I don't remember what the organization was, but they came around during Christmas time and they would give gifts to some of the patients. And I remember one of the gifts that they got, because a lot of it is, we're on a pediatric floor,
Right, it's geared
so a
to
lot
kids.
of it was geared towards really
young
small kids. But he did find a Nerf gun. And he was so convinced, I am getting this Nerf gun. And when Meredith comes to work, she's getting it.
And I got it.
Sure enough, she walked through that door and he went unloaded.
Nailed me.
Yes. And you were screaming halfway down the hall. He's like smiling from ear to ear. I got her good.
Oh, got me good. That's for sure.
That was funny. So you do remember that?
I do remember that.
Yes. Yeah.
I
He got
absolutely
that's all he
do.
thought about was that Nerf gun. I'm going to get her.
What a nailer.
Yeah, but he knew he had that type of relationship with Meredith. There wasn't like, a couple of them. He wouldn't have done that too,
Yeah.
because
No.
you and him joked and had fun, and
We
and
did.
yeah,
He had a
definitely.
different relationship with all of his nurses.
Absolutely. Because Chloe, I'll never forget poor Chloe. And then the one that actually did his bone marrow transplant was Katie, and he loved Katie, but it was a different relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, he didn't get that gun for her.
He did not.
He did not get that Nerf gun.
He knew who he could pull it on.
Oh, totally. That was fun. That was
I don't know why he thought it was me. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
come on now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay, Steve, do you have any questions?
What would you, Meredith, tell maybe parents or anybody that's getting ready, that they just found out bad news that, I have a cancer? What kind of advice do you have for them as they prepare to, go on this new journey of their life?
Yeah. Really just take it a day at a time, because it's overwhelming just hearing the word cancer in general, and then have it being related to your child, your baby. It's just intense and overwhelming, and your mind kind of goes out of control about what's going to happen? Where's this going to go? And so really, really trying to take it a day at a time and let it sink in and never be afraid to ask questions. You have every right to know what's going to happen to your child and question it if it doesn't feel right.
You have to be your own advocate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Big supporter of that. You're entrusting your lives to, professionals. And of course, there's always the best intent, but you have every right to determine whether or not that's what's best for your child. Together, make decisions together. It's not a dictatorship. You should be involved in the decisions and the choices, and really trying to love one another within your family. It's such an intense and emotional time, and you tend to see a lot of tension and turmoil in relationships between mom and dad, or issues with
the stress.
Absolutely,
alone is enough to tear any family apart.
100%. And unfortunately, it happens. And siblings, don't forget about their brothers and sisters, because especially when they're younger. And our Child Life program at UCLA is really great about getting a hold of those kids, their brothers and sisters, and talking about what's going on with their sibling, and just remembering that they still need love, and they also deserve to understand what's going on with their brother or sister, and at an age appropriate level,
Absolutely,
of course,
yeah,
but
for sure.
not isolating them, just really trying to maintain your family and get through it together.
Yeah, your Child Life program is amazing.
Yes.
And it's because of them that Ryan had the opportunity to be friends with Justin Turner, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
So awesome.
Yeah. Were you there that day?
I was not.
Oh, bummer.
But, I remember, and one of the things that always makes me laugh about Ryan is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but.
Not according to your sweatshirt.
Not according to my sweatshirt. Tell him what it says, Steve.
It says, I may be wrong, but I doubt it.
I doubt
it. So I think the day, he didn't know that Ryan Turner was coming. It was a surprise.
Justin
was
Oh,
coming.
I'm so sorry.
No, we're not going to edit that because I want Justin to hear exactly what you said.
Of course. Of course. Okay, but go ahead. You definitely have a story here. I can tell.
Okay. I'm sorry, Justin. Justin Turner. I remember Holly telling me, well, one thing about Ryan is he was just like the shirtless wonder. Ryan never wanted to wear a shirt. Like, he was just always half naked. Like, always.
And is that something you talked about at the nurses station?
You know what?
I think it was.
It was. I mean, it was hilarious. He just never wanted to wear a shirt. It was
Everybody
like a
else
thing.
on the floor's in PJs, and Ryan's in just basketball shorts, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Shirtless wonder.
Like
That's hilarious.
He's a shirtless wonder. And I think that you were telling him he needed to put a shirt on.
Yep.
And he was like, why? Why gotta put a shirt on? Like, he was fighting it. And
He was fighting it, and I did. And he goes, "You're acting like somebody's coming." And all right. Well, yeah, and Steve and I were there, and Aaron was there, and Nicole was there.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
It was
we
right
had
before
all
Christmas.
these people. So, and I mean, he definitely had the
He
big red
knew-
flag.
Yeah,
he knew
big red
something
flag.
was up.
Yeah.
But you got to put the shirt on for a
Put the
photo
shirt-
op.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't be half naked in a
That's
photo
right.
op,
Oh my gosh. So are there any other things that we needed to, or that you guys talked about behind that nurse's station that could come out now?
You know
The
what?
shirtless wonder is one.
Yeah, Ryan was always shirtless. Everyone was always super impressed by your guys' bunk beds in the corner.
And did you?
I saw them. They're right
the bunk
behind
beds.
me.
They are in our podcast room, and yes, our bunk beds. People would actually come into the hospital and look at them
They would, yeah.
Just to see them.
to see them. Yeah,
It was a
and
highlight.
It was a highlight. So just for the
Like an
people that don't
exhibit.
know, yeah, exactly. Had these cots, and they were
They're disc beds.
they're disc beds. Here's a little infomercial on that.
Get it right.
And, So anyway, I slept always on the top bunk. And so I was basically...
I'm a little too big for the top.
Yep. So he was on the bottom. And anyway, we always set them up. That's where we were in every room.
That was our home.
That was...
It was your home.
Yeah. So I don't feel bad for people that have to sleep on these because I slept on them for months.
Yes, you did.
Months.
You were a trooper.
Yes, I was a trooper. Yes.
Yes.
So, the bunk beds. I forgot.
Yeah, the bunk beds. They were a big hit. Everybody loved Ryan. I don't know anybody who doesn't love Ryan. So to this day, we still talk about him when we get new patients that kind of remind us of him. Everybody kind of says, oh, it makes me think of Ryan. And that's how it is with a lot of these kids. They may be gone, but they're definitely not forgotten. Definitely not by us. They spend so much time with us and we spend so much time with them. And it's just this incredible bond that we get to have. And I, in no means am happy that anyone gets cancer. Obviously, I spend my life, I chose to take care of those and hopefully get rid of cancer for those who have it. But I actually, about a year ago, had saw on Facebook a mom of one of my patients that I was actually telling Holly a little bit about. Her name is Alexa, and I first met her when she was 5, and she is now 12. It's insane. And about a year ago, Alexa was getting ready for bed, and she asked her mom something along the lines of, Mommy, are you happy that I had to go to the hospital and get chemo? And her mom was like, no, Alexa, why would that make me happy? That doesn't make me happy. And Alexa said, well, it makes me happy because otherwise I never would have met all of the doctors and the nurses and the other patients that I love so much. And again, not that I ever want anybody to have cancer, but kind of made me think like there's a bigger picture. Like had I never had Ryan not gotten sick, I never would have met him. I never would have met you guys. And I hate the way that it ended, but I'm so blessed to have known him and to still get to have a relationship with you guys.
Yes, and we do have a relationship with Meredith, and she's helped out at the Justin Turner Foundation, the golf tournament. And she's also helping out with our Victory Trip Reveal, and she's done a lot of things. So we're thankful to have you in our lives, and we are. Even though I was probably, you're not at your best. You're really not. I'm not gonna apologize for it.
You
but
shouldn't.
there is you're just not. You're not 100%. And I don't know that I'll ever be 100%, to be honest. But I'm so thankful for his nonprofit that he started. And do you remember that he wrote a book?
I remember.
Were you there?
I remember the first time he read it to me.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Because that was one thing he did in the hospital.
He sure did.
Yeah.
He was in room 35, so last room in the hallway. And I remember coming in. I was taking care of him. I took care of him a lot. And he told me, I wrote a book. I was like, wrote a book? All right, okay. And I said, well, let's hear it. And he was like, you want me to read it to you? I'm like, yeah, I want you to read it to me. So I remember I walked around on the other side of his bed, so closest to the window where the bunk beds were set up. And I sat down on the bed and he read it to me. And I was like, you know what? This is super special.
And what did he read it off of? I've been wanting to know, what did he write it on?
It was on his phone.
Oh, it was on his phone.
Yeah, he had it on his phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because was Nicole there at the time?
She was not there. Nicole had left.
This was the one night, I think 2 nights we had discovered that he slept at the hospital by himself. And
only 2?
Only 2. And so what happened, this was one of the nights, and I think I had recalled this on one of the podcasts previously, is that she had left at like 6 or 7, and she told me. And at the time, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to write this book while she's gone, And so, because it was an assignment that Debbie had given them both.
Yeah.
And so it took him an hour. And so, of course, Nicole calls me and says, okay, well, I left. he's fine. Everything's good. He'll call you if anything's going, if anything's wrong. But we were going to be there, 8:00 in the morning or whatever. And so I get a phone call at like 9. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And, we'll be there in the morning. And he said, no, I wrote a book. Said the same thing to us. I wrote a book. I'm like, book?
That's just Ryan. Whenever he decided he was going to do it, he did it.
He did it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It's such a cute book. And I love it because we do book reads at our local schools, and we're always looking for avenues to spread the book. And people will tell me, I love it. I love the book, but I always have to tell them it's not about cancer. It has nothing to do with cancer.
Right.
It's about a cute little toad.
And I learned on your last podcast that it was a family game you guys used to play. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
he always
cool.
would come home with these crazy little riddles too. And so he would let us, it took me probably 3 days to come up with the actual code that's in the book. And I was just, you're just thinking too hard, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's so simple, but yet so hard, but yeah, leave it to him to put it in the book. So it's special. It's super special. And I thought that Nicole kind of nailed it. She said, we both tackled our strengths.
Yeah.
So that was really cool because when it was, poem time for Ryan, he, during school, he would just whip those out in 2 seconds. I think he'd tell Aaron, let me just do it for you because he was so good at it. He could just whip them out and he loved to do
Aaron.
it. Yeah. Lucky Aaron. So, but anyway, that was really cool that he did that. And I think a lot of the nurses realized what he was doing, but
yeah.
Well, with that, I think it's time we wrap up this podcast. And I think it's so important that we mention that legacy that Ryan left behind. A legacy to a lot of people means things.
Yes.
It means money. It means a house. It means what's in your will. That's not what Ryan's legacy was.
Mm-mm.
Ryan's legacy was about loving one another, and it was about cherishing life. And I think that's so important that we remember that, especially in this day and age with where we're at. We've become such an I society that it's so important to put others first. And that's with 17 Strong. That's what we're doing is we're putting other young adults first, something that Ryan really cherished. So
yes.
With that, Meredith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to wrap up another podcast for 17 Strong. Remember, attitude is everything.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Come on, let's go and play.
I never see you anymore.
Come out the door.
It's like you've gone away. We used to be best buddies,
But now we're not.
I wish you would tell me why.
Do you want to build a snowman?
It doesn't have to be a snowman.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. To be part of the show, make a donation, or request more information, go to 17strong.org. That's SEVENTEEN strong.org.